Hello everyone, my name is Brendan Marr, that noise you hear is my ventilator. And welcome to Page Turners They Were Not My Star Wars podcast. Today, I'm going to review the 4th episode of The Mandalorian, or should I say Chapter 4, entitled Sanctuary. Well, to give you my overall thought, let me just say that I enjoyed this episode, but I didn't love it. This is my least favorite episode so far. But to be clear, that's not a bad thing. This show has been very good. Now, the first thing I want to say is I might have enjoyed this episode a little bit more had the plot not already been done in an episode of the Clone Wars. Now, remind you, those of you listening, this is a spoiler review. So if you have not seen this episode, or don't care about spoilers, if you have not seen this episode, this chapter of The Mandalorian, this might not be the podcast for you right now. Now, that being said, so the episode of the Clone Wars entitled, I believe it's called Bounty Hunters, is a retelling of the Seven Samurai, the classic Jidaigeki Japanese history film by Akira Kurosawa, arguably the greatest filmmaker of all time. This episode of The Mandalorian also is a retelling of the same story of peaceful villagers beset by bandits who basically hire mercenaries to fight off the bandits. And now, because it had already been done on the Clone Wars, it felt even more unoriginal here on The Mandalorian, which I thought is interesting because Dave Filoni, who was the animation guru at Lucasfilm, who was in charge of the Clone Wars, is also involved with The Mandalorian. You'd think he wouldn't want to repeat himself, but whatever. That being said, I think the main plot of this episode was extremely uninteresting to me. And we don't really get to know the bandits. We don't... it doesn't really give us much of them. And the villagers' victory over the bandits with the help of the Mandalorian and his new ally, Cara Dune, seems almost too easy. And it's not something that I cared that much about. However, lest you think this is going to be an episode where I gripe about this new Mandalorian chapter, let's talk about the things that I did like very much in this episode. Yet again, off the top, more adorable Baby Yoda stuff. This character is so incredibly entertaining. And of course, it's created many new memes. And let's just say this last episode, he's very memeable. Especially with sipping his soup after watching the Mandalorian Cara Dune get into a scrap. What I do like about this episode is that it gives us time to explore the characters. This episode marks the introduction of Gina Carano's character, named Cara Dune, who is a former shock trooper for the Rebel Alliance, lamenting the fact that now that the rebels won at Endor and have turned into the New Republic, that she really feels like she doesn't have anywhere to go now that her days as a soldier are over. It's the idea of adjusting to the peace has been hard for her. Cara Dune's a character that I enjoyed quite a bit. I think her dry wit is suited to Gina Carano's lack of acting talent. So there isn't really anything too difficult for her to tackle in this episode. I found her maybe a little too dry, but I think I understand what they were going for. I do really like the fact that it's a draw when she fights the Mandalorian, and they sort of fight to a standstill. And the fact that they're like, oh, well, I guess we kind of misunderstood each other there. But it really got us a chance to see Gina Carano fight, and of course, she is a professional wrestler, so all the more reason for her to have a fight scene. But I think it definitely shows that they're equally matched, or these two characters, and to show that she really means business when she says she can fight. Or at least the moment we first see her, we assume she can fight pretty well, and it's nice to get to see her in action instead of her just saying, oh, well, I was a shock trooper and I'm good in a fight. We get to see that. And we get to, from her point of view, get to hear more of the story of what's the situation in the galaxy. She fought at the Battle of Endor. Or at least fought at Endor. I don't know if it was the Battle of Endor. But also just the fact that the Rebel Alliance became the New Republic, and that she felt very out of place in the role as a peacekeeper. So she kind of left to do her own thing. Now, if I can just say really quick, the first scene where we see her in a local bar on this, whatever this planet is, the dialogue in that scene, especially with the waitress, seems a little out of place in Star Wars. It feels almost too modern, and it kind of takes away from the timelessness that Star Wars is supposed to have. And also the two guys who come to recruit the Mandalorian, taking the part of the villagers from the Seven Samurai or the Magnificent Seven who set out to hire mercenaries. The one, main guy of the two of them gives a pretty poor performance, unfortunately. And yet again, feels almost too out of place for Star Wars. Now, I know that sounds, judging what is in place in Star Wars. But it's more that they feel too modern Earth and not timeless. I mean, you could argue that there are a lot of moments in the original Star Wars movies that are very grounded in our time, but they don't feel so I don't even know how to describe it, but I didn't particularly like the performance of the barkeeper or the lead guy, the two recruiters. Maybe that's a better way of putting it. I didn't like their performances. And maybe if you'll see it, you'll agree, or if you've seen it, maybe agree or disagree. But But I think that overall, the story of defending the village ends up becoming kind of boring, and not boring, but I just didn't care about it. But like I said, so introducing Cara Dune, great. Her character, the way that Gina Carano, it definitely played to her talents as a new actress. It definitely focused on her strengths instead of trying to give her anything to do that felt out of her reach. Now, she maybe uses a couple of words and phrases that feel a little odd to hear in Star Wars, but I think that it's often hard to take anything new in Star Wars and be like, because at first sometimes it may feel like it doesn't fit. Certain phrases, certain words. But maybe after a time I might feel differently about it. But anyhow, the positives. So the introduction of her character was great. And I like the idea of giving us time to get to know her. Instead of just saying, hi, I'm here, let's go on an adventure. To me, this episode feels like the first 3 episodes are one act. Or Act 1, and then maybe episode 5 will start a new act. But this episode, Sanctuary, is as its name might imply, a kind of a break from that. Kind of here's a quiet moment before we go into the next act. So that felt, if you look at it that way, I think it worked. Now, that being said, there is a character here that I really, really like her interaction with the Mandalorian. Now, I can't remember the character's name, but she's the mom of the little girl. And the actress I'd seen her before on Westworld. Somebody pointed that out after I watched the episode. I like her interactions with the Mandalorian. It feels like, now that he's with Baby Yoda and feels a little bit more responsible, he's a little bit more open, I think, with his feelings. And I like that he was open with his feelings with the lady. And she was able to really get a lot out of him, and it was through that we were able to learn more about the Mandalorian's backstory. We know that he was adopted by the Mandalorians now, that's been made clear. And we know that he doesn't take his helmet off in the presence of other people. Because people were wondering, well, don't the Mandalorians take their helmets off at least sometimes? I assume if Mandalorians get married, they probably do take their helmets off in each other's company. But I think that, they definitely don't with strangers. And I know that she was very interested in kind of seeing what he looked like. And it feels to me like there's almost a bit of a romance between the two, if you could call it that. And I like that we really get to see a little bit more of the Mandalorian's personality as brought out by this villager. I also like the little girl, how much she liked Baby Yoda. That was cute. But yeah, I enjoyed a lot of that, getting to really know the characters. Now, as I had mentioned about the story with the bandits, the one part that I thought was very interesting, or rather that I liked, was the ATST. Oh my gosh, when that thing first stood up, when we first see it, and it's got red eyes, it was like something out of a horror movie. That was really, really, really cool and really freaky. Now, defeating the ATST, why didn't it just blow up the village since it had a clear shot? That whole thing felt a little ridiculous to me. But, nonetheless, I really did like that, sort of that look of the ATST. I think far more menacing than it's ever been in the history of Star Wars. I also thought it was very interesting at the end of the episode that Baby Yoda is not safe. As another bounty hunter showed up to try to kill the baby. Because the idea was of leaving, the Mando's idea was to leave the baby with the villagers. But now he saw he couldn't do that because the baby would be unsafe. It's very interesting that people are still have bounties on the baby. Which is interesting because I know that there's been, you saw with many of the bounty hunters and the client and Dr. Pershing that there are conflicting views on whether the baby should die or live. But I suspect that maybe the client said, well, since the Mandalorian stole the kid, we should try to get rid of it. I don't know. That still hasn't been fully explained, but I'm interested to find out why there's still a bounty on the Baby Yoda's head in terms of killing him as opposed to bringing him back alive. I don't know. Maybe they want to harvest from his dead body, which is kind of scary. So, all in all, I enjoyed this episode. I didn't love it, but I think there was a lot in it that I really did enjoy. Particularly the character development. I'm very intrigued to see where the story goes from here. So let me know what you thought about this episode. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Where does it rank with the episode so far? My name is Brendan Marr, that noise here is my Mandalorian. And thank you for tuning in to Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. May the Force be with you.